turn off the lights, fluff your pillows, and sink into bed, because tonight we're going to dive into the shadows of history where love soothes broken hearts. Think modern stress, with its constant stream of notifications, is harsh. Imagine Victorian times, where a misplaced glance could destroy you, or medieval times, where a heavy heart meant you were damned. We build stories to learn and relax, so if you like them, drop a like or subscribe. Where are you watching from and what time is it? Comment below. It's strange how we're all relaxing all over the world. Ready? You'll step into Queen Victoria's shoes, heart racing with love, then wander a 1350s village where madness was treated with a blade to the arm. Explore how love and community, over the centuries, have healed the mind in ways that still resonate. Imagine yourself as Victoria, barely 18, crowned Queen of England in 1837, yet trapped in a world that sparkles with opulence, but suffocates with control. You're in Kensington Palace, where stone walls loom like silent jailers, their cold surfaces reflecting the flicker of candlelight. The air carries the heavy scent of melted wax, mingling with the faint polish of mahogany furniture, but it feels stale, as if the very rooms conspire to stifle you. Your bed, draped in velvet, is a fortress of luxury, yet it offers no comfort when you wake, heart heavy with a loneliness that no crown can cure. As you pull the silk sheets closer, their smoothness mocks your unease. You're the most powerful woman in the world, yet your life isn't yours. Your mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her scheming advisor, John Conroy, dictate your every move. When you rise, what you wear, even who you speak to. Their voices, sharp and commanding, echo through the corridors, a constant reminder that queenship is a gilded cage. You rise, your bare feet touching the cold marble floor, a shiver running up your spine. The palace is a maze of grandeur, with chandeliers glittering like frozen stars and portraits of stern ancestors glaring down. But grandeur doesn't warm the heart. You slip into a heavy silk gown, its weight tugging at your shoulders, as if the fabric itself knows the burden you carry. At breakfast, served on silver plates, the clink of cutlery is drowned by your mother's lecture on duty. You must be proper, Alexandrina, she calls you, refusing your chosen name, Victoria, as if even your identity is hers to control. You nod, but inside you're screaming. Your journal, hidden under a velvet cushion, becomes your only confidant. Its leather cover is worn from your touch, and as you scribble, I am so weary, so alone, the ink smudges under your trembling fingers. The world sees a queen, but you feel like a prisoner, your heart a locked box no one bothers to open. This is 1837, a time when Victorian society wrapped women in rules tighter than any corset. As queen, you're spared the marriage market that traps other girls your age, yet you're not free. The court buzzes with advisors, each with their own agenda, whispering about alliances and heirs. You're expected to be a symbol, poised, perfect, untouchable, while your mind churns with doubts. What if you fail England? What if you're never more than a puppet? The air in the palace feels thick, like the fog that blankets London's streets, where horse hooves clatter and vendors shout. You envy those street sellers their freedom, their ability to move without eyes tracking their every step. Your low spirits, as you call them in your journal, are a secret you guard fiercely. If the court knew their queen wrestled with sadness, they'd whisper of weakness, unfit for a ruler. So you smile, your lips stiff, and carry on. But here's the shock. Even a queen can feel powerless, her mind a battlefield no crown can conquer. You pace your chambers, the rustle of your gown a soft protest against the silence. The Victorian era, with its obsession with propriety, offers no language for your struggles. There's no doctor for a troubled mind, no word for the weight you feel, only expectations to be regal, to be strong. You think of modern times, where therapy apps and hotlines exist, and you wonder how anyone survived this era without them. Yet survival is what you do. Your mother's voice cuts through your thoughts, summoning you to a meeting with foreign dignitaries. The chandelier above glints like 1,000 tiny knives, and you feel their scrutiny as you enter, your heart pounding beneath your tightly laced bodice. They bow, but their eyes dissect you, searching for flaws. You're Victoria, the girl queen, but also a young woman craving connection, someone to see beyond the crown. Your journal entries grow darker. I am surrounded, yet so alone. The palace, with its endless rooms, feels like a labyrinth, each corridor leading back to your solitude. You long for a friend, a confidant, someone to share the weight of your thoughts. In 1837, such a wish feels impossible, but history whispers a promise. Soon, Albert will arrive, his quiet strength a light in your darkness. His coming will change everything, proving that even in a world of rigid rules, love can heal a troubled mind. This royal backdrop, so different from today's world, teaches us something profound. You, Victoria, embody a resilience that echoes across centuries. Your struggle, balancing duty with a heart that aches for freedom, mirrors the stress of modern life, where we juggle work, expectations, and sleepless nights. The Victorian era, with its suffocating etiquette, forced you to hide your pain, yet you found ways to endure, scribbling your truth in secret pages. That act of writing, of claiming your voice, is a rebellion, a spark of defiance that lights the way for what's to come. As you sit by your window, the London fog curling outside like a ghostly curtain, you don't know it yet, but love is on the horizon. Albert's arrival will show you that even in the darkest times, connection can mend a weary soul, a lesson as true now as it was in 1837. You are Victoria, 17 years old, not yet queen, standing in a grand drawing room at Kensington Palace in May 1836, your heart thudding like a drum beneath your tightly laced corset. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax candles and the faint tang of polished oak, but it does little to ease the knot in your stomach. Your mother, the Duchess of Kent, has orchestrated this moment, her voice sharp as she adjusts your heavy silk gown, its sapphire folds rustling like a restless sea. You're no stranger to suitors, paraded before you like prize horses by ambitious courtiers, but today is different. Albert, your cousin from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, is coming, and whispers of his seriousness, his intellect, have already reached you. As you smooth your gloves, the soft kid leather cool against your palms, you wonder if he'll be just another dull prince or something more. The chandelier above glints like a cruel eye, watching your every move. The doors swing open, and there he is, Albert, taller than you imagined, with clear blue eyes and a shy smile that cuts through the room's stuffy formality. His dark coat fits perfectly, and you catch a whiff of his bergamot cologne, sharp and clean, like a breeze from a world beyond these walls. Your mother and her advisor, John Conroy, hover nearby, their gazes pinning you in place like a butterfly under glass. You curtsy, your knees trembling, and Albert bows, his movements precise yet gentle. Your Highness, he says, his voice low, with a German accent that softens the edges of his words. You manage a reply, but your throat feels tight as if the palace's rules have coiled around it. You're supposed to be poised, a future queen, but inside, you're a girl desperate for someone to see past the crown you don't yet wear. The conversation begins, stiff at first, like a dance you haven't rehearsed. You talk of music, Beethoven, Mozart, and his eyes light up, not with the practiced charm of courtiers, but with genuine passion. He speaks of art, of science, of a world where ideas matter more than titles. You feel a spark, a warmth that makes the room's heavy drapes seem less oppressive. He's different, you think, your fingers fidgeting with the lace at your wrist. But doubt creeps in, cold as the marble floor beneath your slippers. What if this is just another fleeting moment, another face lost in the parade of your controlled life? You've learned to guard your heart, taught by a mother who sees you as a pawn, not a daughter. Yet Albert's quiet sincerity, his way of listening when you speak, makes you wonder if freedom might exist, even in this gilded cage. Here's the shock. Even a future queen can feel like a nobody, her heart a locked diary no one reads. You glance at Albert, and for a moment your eyes meet, too long perhaps, for Victorian propriety. Your mother clears her throat, a warning shot, and you look away, cheeks burning. In 1836, a single glance could spark scandal, yet you feel alive as if you've glimpsed a world where you're more than a symbol. You think of modern times, where a text or a swipe can start a romance, and laugh inwardly at how your every word is policed by chaperones. The drawing room, with its velvet chairs and a ticking clock, feels like a stage, and you're playing a role you didn't choose. But Albert's presence, his calm curiosity, is a crack in the script, a hint that maybe, just maybe, you could write your own story. As the visit ends, Albert bows again, his smile lingering like a promise. You return to your chambers, the air cooler now, scented with the lavender your maid scatters on the floor. You sit at your desk, quill in hand, the scratch of ink on paper, a quiet rebellion against your mother's rules. He is kind, intelligent, not like the others. You write in your journal, the leather cover warm under your fingers. Your heart races, a mix of hope and fear. In Victorian times, love was a dangerous game, especially for a princess who must marry for alliance, not affection. You've seen other women trapped in loveless matches, their spirits crushed under society's weight. Yet Albert feels different, like a melody you can't forget. You pause, quill hovering, and wonder if he felt the same spark, or if you're just a duty to him, another stop on his European tour. This moment, so small yet seismic, teaches you resilience. You're Victoria, a girl on the cusp of queenship, yet your heart aches like any other's. The strict etiquette of 1836, with its suffocating rules, mirrors the pressures of today, endless notifications and expectations to be perfect. But you, scribbling in your journal, are fighting back, claiming a piece of yourself in a world that demands you be a queen first, a woman second. Albert's arrival is a turning point, a whisper of hope that love might heal the loneliness you carry. As you blow out the candle, its smoke curling like a ghost, you feel a flicker of defiance. History will remember you as Queen Victoria, but at this moment you're just a girl, heart pounding, dreaming of a future where someone sees you for you. That spark, born in a stuffy drawing room, will change everything. You're Victoria, Still a princess at 17, sitting at your desk in Kensington Palace, the summer of 1836 fading like the last glow of a candle. The room smells of ink and lavender, the air heavy with the weight of your mother's rules. Albert, your German cousin, has just left after that first meeting, his shy smile lingering in your mind like a melody you can't shake. You pick up your quill, its feather brushing your fingers, and begin a letter, the scratch of nib on paper, a quiet defiance against the palace's stifling silence. Dear Albert, you write, your hand trembling, your visit brought light to my dreary days. The words feel daring, almost scandalous, in a Victorian world where a woman's heart is locked tighter than a corset. You're not queen yet, just a girl craving connection, your loneliness a shadow that follows you through these marble halls. Each letter you send is a risk, a crack in the armor of propriety that binds you. Your mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her advisor, John Conroy, watch your every move, their whispers sharp as the ticking clock on your mantle. You seal the letter with wax, its red pool hardening like your resolve, and send it to Germany. Weeks later, Albert's reply arrives, the envelope crisp, his crest gleaming under candlelight. You break the seal, heart racing, and read his words, thoughtful, earnest, not the empty flattery of courtiers. He writes of his studies, his love for music, and tentatively his own struggles in a foreign court. I, too, know what it is to feel alone, he confesses, and you feel a jolt as if he's reached through the page to touch your hand. In 1836, letters were your only bridge, each one a thread weaving a bond that defies distance and decorum. Days turn to months, and your correspondence grows, a secret garden blooming in the cracks of your controlled life. You write late at night, the palace asleep, the air cool with the scent of rain-soaked roses drifting through your window. I am weary of being a pawn, you admit in one letter, your quill scratching fiercely. Albert's replies are steady, like a heartbeat, stories of his hikes in the Black Forest, his dreams of a world shaped by ideas, not titles. You laugh, a rare sound, at his dry humor about German court gossip. These lords, he writes, think pomp is personality. You smirk, imagining him rolling his eyes, and for a moment the weight of your future crown feels lighter. But doubt gnaws at you. What if he's just being polite? You scribble in your journal, the leather cover worn from your anxious touch. Victorian rules choke your hopes, demanding you marry for alliances, not love. Here's the shock. Even a future queen can be paralyzed by fear of rejection, her heart a battlefield where hope and doubt clash. You pause, quill hovering, as you write to Albert, each word a step on a tightrope. In today's world, a quick text might confess your feelings, but in 1836, every letter is a calculated risk, scrutinized by chaperones and spies. You think of modern lovers, free to flirt openly, and almost envy them. Yet there's a strange beauty in this slow dance of ink and paper, where every sentence reveals a piece of your soul. Albert's letters, arriving every few weeks, are like breaths of fresh air in the stuffy palace. He writes of his love for Beethoven and his plans for social reform, and you feel seen not as a princess, but as Victoria, a girl with dreams too big for her gilded cage. By 1839, you're 20 now, queen, your coronation a whirlwind of velvet and gold. Albert's letters have become your lifeline, each one tucked away like a treasure. You sit in your private study, the fire crackling, its warmth a faint comfort against the chill of your responsibilities. I am surrounded, Yet alone, you write to him, your pen trembling with honesty. His reply is bold. I wish to stand by your side, not as a prince, but as your friend. Your heart skips, a flutter that feels like rebellion. You've met other suitors, stiff, ambitious men who see you as a crown, not a woman. But Albert's words are different, raw, real. You pace the room, your silk slippers whispering on the rug, and decide to invite him back to London. The thought terrifies you. What if he doesn't feel this spark? You murmur, your voice lost in the palace's vastness. The decision to propose looms, a daunting task for a queen taught to be demure. You're no ordinary woman. Victorian etiquette bends for you, yet the thought of baring your heart feels like stepping into a storm. You write one last letter before his arrival, the paper crinkling under your grip. I long to speak with you, to know your heart. As you seal it, the wax smells faintly of smoke, like the courage you're summoning. In modern times, love moves fast. Swipes, dates, instant messages. But in your world, love is a slow burn, kindled by letters that cross continents. Albert's replies, filled with ideas and warmth, have taught you resilience and the strength to hope despite the chains of duty. You stand by your window, the London fog curling like a ghostly veil, and feel a shift. This correspondence, this fragile thread of affection, is building something unbreakable. This exchange, so simple yet profound, mirrors the struggles of today. You, Victoria, are a young woman navigating a world that demands perfection, much like those who lie awake now, stressed by endless expectations. Your letters to Albert, written in the dead of night, are acts of defiance, a claim to your own heart in a society that seeks to own it. The Victorian era, with its rigid rules, tried to cage your spirit, but these pages, filled with ink and longing, set you free. As you await Albert's return, the ticking clock a reminder of time's weight, you realize that love, even in its earliest whispers, can heal a troubled mind. This slow, deliberate dance of words across years and miles is a testament to survival, a spark that will light your path to a love that changes history. You're Victoria, standing in the Chapel Royal on February 10th, 1840, your heart a fluttering bird beneath a white silk gown heavy with Brussels lace. The air smells of candle wax and the faint sweetness of orange blossoms pinned to your veil, the first royal bride to wear white, a choice that sets tongues wagging across London. Your corset pinches, but nothing can dim the glow as you see Albert at the altar, dashing in his scarlet uniform, his blue eyes steady like an anchor in a storm. The crowd murmurs, their silk hats and feathered bonnets, a sea of expectation, but you only see him. As you exchange vows, his hand brushes yours, warm through your kid gloves, and you feel a rush, as if the rigid Victorian world has cracked open. I am his, you whisper to yourself, the words a secret rebellion against the palace's suffocating rules. The ceremony is a spectacle, yet it's the quiet moments that bind you. After the vows, you slip away to a private chamber, the clink of champagne glasses fading behind you. Albert takes your hand, his touch gentle, and says, "You are my home, Victoria." Your journal, tucked away in your velvet reticule, will later hold these words, "He is my safe harbor." But queenship doesn't pause for love. You return to Buckingham Palace, its corridors buzzing with courtiers who eye you like hawks, waiting for a misstep. The weight of the crown lingers, your low spirits creeping back in quiet hours, especially after sleepless nights spent signing decrees. You think of today's world, where therapy might ease such burdens, and smirk at how your court would gasp at the idea. In 1840, a queen's heart must be hidden, her weakness buried beneath layers of silk and duty. Here's the shock. Even a royal marriage, draped in gold and glory, can't shield you from the ache of a troubled mind. Your first months as a wife are a whirlwind. State dinners, diplomatic letters, and whispers about heirs. Albert, though, is your rock. By firelight in your private study, he reads poetry, his voice soft as the crackling logs, soothing the anxiety that gnaws at you. You carry too much, he says, his hand on yours, and you feel the weight lift, if only for a moment. You laugh, a rare sound when he mimics the pompous lords, their wigs bobbing like overripe fruit. Victorian society demands you be a perfect queen, but with Albert, you're just Victoria, a woman allowed to stumble. His belief in you, your mind, your strength, feels like a rebellion against the etiquette that chains every gesture. Children came quickly, first Victoria in 1840, then Albert Edward a year later. The nursery smells of warm milk and lavender, its chaos a stark contrast to the palace's polished order. You're a mother now, but the role feels foreign, your low spirits flaring after each birth. Albert steps in, rocking the cradle when you're too weary, his patience a balm. You write in your journal, "He makes me whole," the ink smudging under your tired fingers. The court sniffs at his involvement. Men aren't meant to fuss over babies. But Albert ignores them, his German practicality cutting through Victorian nonsense. You think of modern parents, sharing duties freely, and marvel at how your era clings to rigid roles. Yet in your little family, you carve out a haven, a space where love trumps protocol, where laughter drowns out the ticking of the palace clock. By 1851, your family has grown, 9 children in all, their footsteps echoing through Buckingham Palace's halls like a joyful riot. Albert throws himself into the great exhibition, a marvel of glass and iron at the Crystal Palace, and you swell with pride watching him charm dignitaries. The air smells of polished steel and exotic spices from the displays, a reminder of a world bigger than your throne. But it's the quiet evenings that you cherish most. Sitting by the fire, Albert reading Goethe, his voice a steady rhythm against the patter of rain on the windows. Your low spirits still linger, a shadow that never fully fades, but his presence softens it. You are enough, he tells you, and you believe him. In a world that demands perfection, his love is a refuge, proof that even a queen can find peace in a partner's arms. This family life, so hard won, teaches resilience. You, Victoria, are a queen juggling empire and motherhood, your heart often heavy with the weight of both. The Victorian era, with its obsession with propriety, tries to mold you into a statue, flawless, cold, but Albert sees the woman beneath. You think of today, where mental health apps and open conversations ease such struggles, and feel a pang of envy for that freedom. Yet your survival, building a family amidst court intrigues and personal doubts, is a triumph. Each child's laugh, each shared glance with Albert, is a defiance of the rules that seek to cage you. As you sit in the nursery, the scent of talcum and wool in the air, you realize love has reshaped your world. This haven, built on trust and partnership, is a beacon, guiding you through the storms of queenship and beyond. You're Victoria, now 42, standing in a dim chamber at Windsor Castle, December 1861, the air thick with the bitter scent of medicinal herbs and the faint crackle of a dying fire. Albert lies before you, his face pale, his once strong hands frail against the white sheets. Your heart feels like a stone, heavy and cold, as you clutch his fingers, willing them to warm. The room is silent, save for the ticking of a clock, each second a cruel reminder of time slipping away. You're no longer the young queen of 1840, giddy with love. You're a mother of 9, a ruler of an empire, yet at this moment, you're just a woman watching her world crumble. Your journal, tucked in your black silk gown, waits for words you can't yet write. Stay with me, you whisper, but his eyes, once bright with ideas, are clouded, fading like stars at dawn. The doctors hover, their whispers sharp as scalpels, muttering about typhoid fever. You've nursed Albert through weeks of illness, the castle's stone walls echoing your footsteps as you pace, sleepless, the weight of your crown forgotten. His voice, once a steady melody, is now a rasp. Victoria, he murmurs, and you lean closer, the smell of laudanum stinging your nose. You've built a life together, children, the great exhibition, dreams of a better England. But now it's unraveling. You think of modern times, where hospitals hum with machines that might have saved him, and a bitter laugh escapes you. In 1861, medicine was a clumsy art, offering little but hope and herbs. The court, with its rigid Victorian etiquette, expects you to remain composed, but inside, you're screaming, your heart a shattered mirror reflecting a future without him. Here's the shock. Even a queen, draped in power and privilege, can be broken by grief so raw it feels like betrayal. When Albert slips away on December 14th, the world stops. You stand frozen, his hand cold in yours, the silence louder than any cannon. You write in your journal, "My life is ended," the ink blurring with tears. The palace, once alive with your children's laughter, feels like a tomb, its corridors heavy with the scent of coal and despair. You don black mourning silk, its rustle a constant dirge, and vow never to wear color again. The court gasps. Queens don't mourn so openly, but you don't care. Victorian rules, with their obsession with propriety, can't contain your pain. You clutch Albert's watch, it's ticking a cruel echo of his heartbeat, and feel the weight of a loss that no empire can fill. Grief reshapes you, like a river carving stone. You retreat to Osborne House, the seaside retreat you and Albert designed, its air salty and sharp, a contrast to London's fog. You wander its gardens, the crunch of gravel underfoot a faint distraction from the ache in your chest. Your children, now your only tether, tug at your skirts, but even their chatter can't pierce the fog of your low spirits. You write to Albert in your journal, as if he's still reading. "You were my light, my strength." The words feel futile, yet they keep you sane. In today's world, you might find therapy or support groups, but in 1861, you're alone with your pain, a queen expected to rule while your heart lies buried. You smirk at the irony. Modern folk tweet their sorrows, while you hide yours behind velvet curtains. Yet, even in this darkness, Albert's love lingers as a ghost that guides you. You keep his clothes, his writing desk, exactly as he left them, and the leather chair still smelling faintly of his cologne. The court whispers of madness, but you're not mad, just grieving. You think of other widows, their losses hidden in society's shadows, and feel a kinship. Victorian England demands you be a stoic queen, but Albert taught you to feel, to love fiercely. You start small rituals, laying out his nightshirt each evening as if he'll return. It's absurd, you know, but it's your defiance against a world that expects you to move on. You walk the halls at night, the moonlight casting long shadows, and realize his love built your resilience. You're broken, yes, but you're still here, ruling, mothering, surviving. This grief, so all consuming, reveals a universal truth. You, Victoria, are a queen, yet your pain is no different from anyone's, a raw human ache that transcends time. You think of today, where people share their sorrows online, seeking solace in virtual communities, and wonder what Albert would make of it. His death has stripped you bare, but it's also shown your strength. You rule an empire, raise your children, and carry his legacy, the Crystal Palace, his reforms, your shared dreams. Each step is a battle, each day a victory over despair. As you sit by your window, the sea's distant roar a faint comfort, you realize love doesn't end with death. Albert's presence, in your heart and your journals, keeps you going, a testament to how love can heal even the deepest wounds. This moment of loss, so stark yet profound, mirrors the struggles of those lying awake now, stressed by life's demands. Your grief, Victoria, is a reminder that even in the Victorian era, with its suffocating rules, people found ways to endure. You, a queen, mourn like any other, your black silk a banner of love and pain. Modern tools, counseling, medication might have eased your path, but your survival, built on Albert's memory, is a triumph of the human spirit. As you trace his initials on a locket, the cold metal grounding you, you feel his lessons linger. Love, even when lost, is a light that never fades. This resilience, born in a cold castle chamber, will carry you forward, just as it inspires those seeking peace in their own restless nights. Picture a small English village in 1350, a cluster of wattle and daub houses huddling under straw roofs that sag like weary shoulders after the Black Death's merciless sweep. The air is sharp with wood smoke, thick with the damp musk of earth, and laced with the faint rot of a sluggish river nearby. Half the village lies silent in the churchyard, their graves fresh scars from the plague that devoured neighbors, friends, and kin just years ago. Those left behind move like ghosts through muddy lanes, their boots squelching, faces etched with a quiet dread that clings heavier than the morning mist. Life here is tethered to the seasons, planting barley, shearing sheep, spinning wool under flickering rushlights. Yet beneath this grind, there's a deeper struggle, one the villagers barely name. A heavy heart, what they call melancholy, isn't just sadness. It's a specter, blamed on sin, demons, or a curse woven into the very air. The village wakes with the crow of roosters, their cries piercing the dawn's chill. Houses are simple, single-room affairs, their dirt floors packed hard by years of footsteps, their wooden shutters rattling against the wind. Inside, a fire pit sputters, its smoke curling up to blacken the thatch, stinging eyes and throats. A woman, let's call her Agnes, stirs a pot of pottage, barley, onions, a few wilted herbs, its earthy smell filling the cramped space. Her hands, rough from spinning wool, move with practiced care, but her eyes are distant, clouded by a restlessness that settled in her chest. In 1350, there was no word for depression, no therapist to call. If Agnes speaks of her troubled mind, neighbors might whisper of divine punishment, or worse, witchcraft. The village, tight-knit yet suspicious, lives in the shadow of the plague, where every oddity feels like a sign of something darker. Survival here is a daily act of defiance. The fields, still half empty from the plague's toll, demand endless labor, plowing, sowing, weeding under a sun that offers little warmth. The blacksmith's hammer rings in the distance, a steady heartbeat against the bleating of lambs and the chatter of women at the well. Yet the plague's ghost lingers, not just in the graves, but in the minds of those who survived. Agnes, like many, carries quiet grief, her brother lost to the pestilence, her world smaller, lonelier. The villagers lean on routine, tending crops, mending nets, baking bread in communal ovens to keep despair at bay. But melancholy, that uninvited guest, creeps in, especially on the long nights when the wind howls like a banshee, rattling shutters and stirring fears of the unknown. The church stands as the village's heart, its mossy stone walls a fortress against both sin and sorrow. Its bell tolls mournfully, calling folk to Mass, where the air smells of incense and damp wool, and narrow windows cast slivers of light on painted saints. For someone like Agnes, it's seeking solace for her heavy heart. The church is the first stop. Father Edmund, the priest, his fingers stained with ink from copying scriptures, listens with a stern gaze. Your soul is troubled, he declares, assuming her sleepless nights and dark thoughts stem from sin or demonic whispers. His remedy is prayer, hours kneeling on cold stone, or fasting until the body weakens to purge the spirit. He hands Agnes a wooden charm, its carved cross rough against her palm, meant to banish evil. In 1350, mental health wasn't a science. It was a battle against unseen forces, fought with faith and fear. Here's the shock. In this world, a troubled mind could mark you as cursed, a step away from a witch's pyre. If Agnes's melancholy deepens, if she mutters in her sleep or shuns the May Day dance, the village's whispers could turn deadly. The Black Death left paranoia in its wake, and tales of witchcraft are already sprouting like weeds. A woman seen wandering alone by the river, staring into its murky depths, might be branded touched, her fate sealed in a trial by fire or water. Modern minds, with their apps and counselors, might scoff at such fears, but in 1350, they're as real as the plague's scars. The village, for all its communal warmth, is a place where difference is dangerous, where a heavy heart must be hidden or risk becoming a death sentence. Yet there's resilience in this harsh world. Agnes's mother, her face lined from years of loss, brews a bitter tea from St. John's wort, believing it lifts spirits. The smell is sharp, like regret, but she insists Agnes drink it daily. Neighbors, though wary, offer small kindnesses, a loaf of rye bread, a bundle of lavender to calm the mind. The village healer, old Marjorie, shuffles in with a sack of herbs, tying a poultice of rue and chamomile to Agnes's chest. Keeps the demons out, she mutters, her breath sour with ale. These remedies, rooted in superstition, are clumsy but earnest, born of a community that, despite its fears, tries to mend its own. The rhythm of daily life, spinning wool, mending fences, sharing ale at the tavern, grounds the villagers, a fragile shield against the despair that lingers after the plague. The seasons turn, and the village prepares for summer, its fields green with barley, its air sweet with blooming hawthorn. Festivals like May Day bring fleeting joy, with ribbons twirling around a maypole and laughter rising like smoke. Agnes, though, feels apart, her melancholy a weight she carries in silence. Her brother Thomas notices, pulling her to the fields to weed, his voice gruff but kind. Idle hands breed dark thoughts, he says, echoing an old proverb. The sun warms her back, the earth cools under her fingers, and for a moment the world feels steady. This labor, this community, is a lifeline, however imperfect. In today's world, we might turn to therapy or medication, But in 1350, survival means leaning on the familiar work, faith, and the stubborn care of those around you. This village life, so raw and relentless, mirrors the struggles of those tossing and turning tonight, stressed by modern demands. The Black Death's shadow, like today's pressures, tested the human spirit, yet people endured. Agnes's village, with its muddy paths and smoky hearths, was no stranger to loss, yet it held fast through shared rituals and small acts of kindness. Modern tools, online support groups, mindfulness apps offer new ways to cope, but the instinct to connect, to survive, is timeless. The villagers, with their prayers and poultices, fought for each other in the only ways they knew, just as we do now. As the church bell tolls, its sound fading into the dusk, it's a reminder that even in the darkest times, humanity finds ways to carry on, to weave hope from the threads of hardship. In the heart of a 1350 English village, the church stands like a weathered sentinel, its moss-covered stones absorbing the morning mist, its bell tolling a mournful call to Mass that echoes across muddy fields. The air inside is heavy with the scent of incense, sharp and smoky, mingling with the damp wool of villagers' cloaks as they shuffle in, their boots leaving smears on the cold stone floor. Candlelight flickers, casting jagged shadows on painted saints whose eyes seem to judge and comfort all at once. For the people of this plague-ravaged world, the church is more than a place of worship. It's a fortress against the unseen terrors of the mind. A young woman, let's call her Agnes, might kneel here, her hands clasped around a worn rosary, seeking solace for a heart weighed down by what the villagers call melancholy. In 1350, there's no word for depression, no therapist's couch, only the church, with its promises of salvation and its threats of damnation. Father Edmund, the village priest, stands at the altar, his gaunt frame draped in a threadbare chasuble, his fingers stained black from copying scriptures by rushlight. His voice, sharp as the tolling bell, preaches that the Black Death, which claimed half the village, was God's judgment, and a troubled mind like Agnes's is a sign of sin or demonic mischief. She approaches him after Mass, her voice barely above a whisper, confessing sleepless nights and dreams that leave her trembling. "Have you sinned, child?" he asks, his eyes narrowing as if peering into her soul. The question stings, like a lash across her already fragile spirit. In this era, mental struggles aren't medical, they're spiritual battles, fought with prayer and penance. Father Edmund's remedy is a regimen of fasting, 3 days with only water and bread, and hours of kneeling on the church's icy floor, reciting Latin prayers she barely understands. The air smells of dust and sanctity, but Agnes feels heavier, as if her sorrow is a stone God himself has placed upon her. The church's grip on mental health is absolute, its rituals both a lifeline and a shackle. Father Edmund hands Agnes a wooden charm, its carved cross rough against her palm, meant to ward off the devil's whispers. "Pray without ceasing," he commands, his voice a low growl, "lest Satan claim you." She clutches the charm, its edges biting into her skin, and nods, though fear coils in her gut. Confession, a sacred rite, is a double-edged sword. Admitting to dark thoughts risks public penance. Standing on a white sheet before the congregation, branded a sinner for all to see. The villagers, huddled in their pews, whisper of others who've faced such shame, their voices blending with the creak of wooden benches. In 1350, the church offered structure, daily masses, seasonal feasts, the rhythmic toll of bells to anchor troubled minds, but it also bred terror. A misstep in faith could mark Agnes as cursed, her melancholy a sign of divine wrath rather than human frailty. Here's the shock. In this devout world, seeking help for a troubled mind could lead to exile or worse, as the Church's cure sometimes deepened the wound. If Agnes's melancholy persists, if she weeps too openly or shuns the village's May Day dance, Father Edmund might declare her possessed, a verdict that could see her cast out or sent to a madhouse like Bethlehem in London. Bethlehem's name alone chills the blood. Tales of its chained inmates, locked in filthy cells, spread like wildfire through the village. The Church, for all its promises of salvation, wields power that can crush as much as it comforts. Modern listeners, tucked in bed with apps offering guided meditation, might chuckle at the idea of praying away sadness. But for Agnes, the Church's judgment is a specter as real as the plague. The line between faith and fear is thin, and crossing it could cost her everything. Yet the Church isn't just a place of dread. It's a tapestry of rituals woven into daily life, offering solace in a world unmoored by loss. Sunday Mass gathers the village, their voices rising in hymns that echo off stone walls, a collective plea for mercy. The scent of melting wax and the faint glow of candles create a fragile warmth, a reminder that even in darkness, there's light. Agnes might find comfort in the rhythm of the Lord's Prayer, its words familiar as her own heartbeat, or in the act of lighting a candle for her brother, lost to the plague. These rituals, rigid as they are, give structure to chaos, a way to name the unnameable pain of a heavy heart. The church calendar, Lent's austerity, Easter's hope, the raucous joy of Whitsuntide, marks time, grounding villagers when their minds threaten to drift into despair. For Agnes, kneeling in the dim nave, the church is a lifeline, however imperfect. Pilgrimages, too, are a cornerstone of the church's approach to mental health, drawing the desperate to shrines across England. Father Edmund urges Agnes to journey to the shrine of Saint Dymphna, a saint revered for healing madness, in a chapel 2 counties away. The idea sparks a flicker of hope, though the journey is daunting. 2 days through muddy forests, past fields still barren from the plague. The villagers speak of Saint Dymphna's miracles, of troubled souls restored by her relics, a fragment of bone housed in a silver reliquary. Agnes imagines kneeling there, the air thick with incense. The priest's Latin chants a soothing hum. But pilgrimages are no gentle stroll. They're tests of endurance, the roads plagued by bandits and rain, the destination crowded with pilgrims whose wild eyes mirror her own fears. The church offers this path as salvation, yet it's a gamble, promising miracles while demanding faith and fortitude. The village's faith in relics and saints reflects a deeper belief that mental anguish is a spiritual affliction, not a bodily one. Father Edmund might sprinkle holy water on Agnes, its cold splash a shock against her skin, or lead her in a procession around the church, the villagers chanting to drive out demons. These acts, steeped in superstition, are earnest attempts to heal, born of a world that sees the divine in every shadow. The church's power lies in its ability to name the unknown, to give Agnes's melancholy a cause, sin, Satan, or God's test, rather than leaving it a formless dread. Modern minds, with their diagnoses and therapies, might smirk at such practices, but in 1350, they're the only language for pain. The church, for all its flaws, is a beacon, drawing the lost to its doors with promises of redemption, even if those promises come with a price. This reliance on faith reveals a stark contrast to today's world, where mental health is a science, not a sermon. Imagine Agnes, kneeling in the cold church, her rosary beads worn smooth, while you, the listener, might scroll through a mindfulness app in the glow of your phone. The comparison is almost comical: holy water versus breathing exercises, but it underscores a shared human need to make sense of suffering. The church in 1350 offered rituals to tame the chaos of the mind, just as we seek order through therapy or medication. Agnes's village, scarred by the Black Death, leaned on faith to survive, their prayers a collective cry against despair. The church's harsh judgments, public penance, threats of possession could wound, but its rituals gave purpose, a way to endure when the world felt broken. Father Edmund, with his stern decrees, wasn't cruel. He was a man of his time, wielding the only tools he knew. The church's role extended beyond the spiritual, shaping the village's social fabric. Festivals like Candlemas or Michaelmas brought the community together, their laughter and ale-soaked songs a brief escape from grief. Agnes might join a procession, carrying a candle through the churchyard, its flame flickering in the wind, a symbol of hope amidst the graves. These moments, however fleeting, knit the village closer, offering Agnes a sense of belonging when her mind feels adrift. The church, for all its dogma, was a place of connection where shared faith softened the edges of isolation. In today's world, we might join a support group or share our struggles online, but the instinct is the same: to find solace in others. Agnes's prayers, her candlelit vigils, were her way of reaching out, a silent plea for someone or something to understand. This dance of faith and fear teaches a profound lesson. The church in 1350, with its incense and chants, was both a refuge and a cage, offering hope while casting shadows of judgment. Agnes, kneeling before the altar, embodies resilience, clinging to rituals that promise healing, even as they demand submission. You, lying awake with modern stresses, might find comfort in knowing that people have always fought to make sense of their pain. The Black Death left scars deeper than graves, yet the villagers carried on, their faith a stubborn spark in the dark. The church, all flawed as it was, gave them a language for suffering, just as we seek answers in science or community. As the bell tolls, its sound fading into the night, it's a reminder that survival, then and now, is a testament to the human spirit's unyielding will to find light, even in the bleakest hours. In the muddy lanes of an English village in 1350, where the air hums with the acrid tang of wood smoke and the faint rot of a sluggish river, the concept of mental health is as foreign as a distant star. The Black Death, having carved its grim path through half the village, left behind not just graves, but a lingering dread that seeps into the mind like damp into thatched roofs. A woman named Agnes, her hands rough from spinning wool, might sit by her hearth, the fire's weak glow casting shadows that dance like her unspoken fears. Her heart is heavy, her nights restless with dreams that leave her trembling. But in this era, there's no word for depression, only melancholy, a shadowy affliction blamed on imbalanced humor, demonic whispers, or a curse cast by a jealous neighbor. Medicine here is a patchwork of ancient theories and superstition, a desperate attempt to tame the mind's chaos with tools as crude as the village's plows. The cornerstone of medieval medicine is the theory of humor, a legacy from ancient Greece that holds sway over every healer's mind. The body, they believe, is ruled by four substances: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and an excess of black bile, dark and sluggish, is said to poison the spirit with melancholy. Agnes's mother, her face etched with worry, summons old Marjorie, the village healer, whose sack of herbs clinks softly as she shuffles through the door. Marjorie's remedy is a bitter tea brewed from St. John's wort, its sharp, earthy scent filling the cramped house like a warning. "Drink this," she says, her voice raspy from years of ale. "It'll chase the black bile away." Agnes sips the brew, wincing at its taste, like regret steeped in hot water. The tea is meant to lift her spirits, but it sits heavy in her stomach, offering little relief beyond her mother's hopeful gaze. Marjorie's cures don't stop at tea. She ties a poultice of lavender and rue to Agnes's chest, the herb's pungent aroma clinging to her wool kirtle like a second skin. "Keeps demons at bay," Marjorie mutters, her eyes darting as if she sees spirits in the room's dim corners. These remedies, steeped in folklore, are the village's first defense against a troubled mind. Every household knows a charm or two: rosemary for clarity, chamomile for calm, passed down through generations like whispered secrets. The air in Agnes's home grows thick with the smell of dried herbs, a faint comfort against the chill seeping through the wattle walls. Yet these cures are as much superstition as science, born of a world where the line between medicine and magic blurs. Agnes wears the poultice, not because she believes in demons, but because hope, however fragile, is all she has. When Marjorie's herbs fail, the village turns to a rarer, costlier option: a physician from London. He arrives on a muddy afternoon, his black cloak splattered, his leather case clinking with tools that sound like trouble. The room darkens as he enters, the firelight glinting off his lancet's sharp edge. He examines Agnes with a cold stare, asking about her diet, her dreams, her monthly courses, his questions probing like needles. His diagnosis is swift: an excess of black bile, aggravated by the plague's lingering miasma, the foul air blamed for all manner of ills. His treatment is bloodletting, a grim ritual to purge the bad humor. Agnes sits, her arm bared, and winces as the lancet slices her skin, the pain sharp, the blood dripping into a clay bowl with a soft patter. "This will lighten your spirit," he promises, his voice flat, but Agnes feels only dizziness, her head spinning as the bowl fills with crimson. Bloodletting is no gentle cure. The physician's hands are steady, but the process is brutal, leaving Agnes weak, her arm throbbing under a rough bandage. He prescribes a diet of bland pottage, no spices, no meat, and a tonic of vinegar and herbs, its sour bite lingering on her tongue like a bad omen. He mutters about the stars, suggesting her melancholy might be written in their alignments, a nod to the era's blend of astrology and medicine. The room smells of blood and vinegar, a stark reminder of how little control anyone has over the mind's shadows. In 1350, physicians are rare, their knowledge a patchwork of Galen's texts and local lore, yet their authority is unquestioned. Agnes's family, scraping together coins for his visit, hopes for a miracle, but the physician's cures, like Marjorie's herbs, often deepen the exhaustion rather than lift the gloom. Here's the shock. In this era, seeking help for a troubled mind could lead to accusations of witchcraft, turning a cry for relief into a death sentence. If Agnes's symptoms worsen, if she speaks of voices in her dreams or shuns the village's communal work, The whispers grow louder. The miller's wife, fetching water at the well, might hiss that Agnes is bewitched, her words spreading like wildfire through the muddy lanes. The Black Death left paranoia in its wake, and tales of witches, women who defy the village's norms, are already taking root. A century later, witch trials will claim thousands, but even in 1350, a woman like Agnes risks being branded a sorceress, her melancholy seen as proof of a pact with the devil. Modern listeners, scrolling through mental health apps in the quiet of their beds, might laugh at such fears, but for Agnes, they're a noose tightening with every whispered rumor. The fear of witchcraft isn't the only threat. If Agnes's melancholy spirals into what the village calls madness, she could be sent to Bethlehem Hospital in London, a place already infamous for its grim cells and iron chains. Stories of Bethlehem's lunatics, locked away in filth, drift through the village like a bad dream, chilling Agnes's blood. The physician's visit, meant to heal, only heightens her dread. His lancet and tonics offer no comfort, and his talk of stars feels like a judgment rather than a cure. In today's world, we'd call Agnes's symptoms of anxiety or depression treatable with therapy or medication, but in 1350, the line between illness and evil is razor thin. The village, for all its communal warmth, watches her closely, its eyes as sharp as the physician's blade, ready to cast out anyone who seems too strange. Yet amidst this crude medicine and dark superstition, there's a flicker of compassion. Agnes's mother, her hands trembling as she stirs pottage, brews more tea, her faith in herbs a stubborn act of love. Neighbors, though wary, share small remedies, a bundle of sage, a whispered charm, hoping to ease her pain. Old Marjorie, despite her odd ways, lingers by the hearth, her stories of healed souls, a clumsy attempt to offer hope. These acts, however misguided, reflect a community trying to mend its own, using the only tools it knows. The village's remedies, herbs, bloodletting, charms, are rooted in a desperate need to explain the unexplainable, to give shape to the formless dread of a troubled mind. The air in Agnes's home, thick with the scent of rue and smoke, carries a quiet promise. Even in this harsh world, no one is entirely alone. The village's reliance on superstition extends beyond herbs and blood. Some believe Agnes's melancholy stems from a curse, perhaps cast by a rival at the market. A neighbor might slip a hagstone, a pebble with a natural hole, under her pillow, claiming it wards off evil spirits. The blacksmith's wife, her hands dusted with flour, mutters prayers to St. Anthony, protector against demons, as she passes Agnes's door. These beliefs, woven into daily life, are as much a part of the village as its fields and hearths. The church, too, reinforces them, with priests sprinkling holy water or chanting exorcisms for those deemed possessed. The sound of Latin prayers, heavy and rhythmic, fills the air like a heartbeat, offering comfort to some and fear to others. For Agnes, these rituals are a double-edged sword, promising relief but threatening judgment if her symptoms persist. This blend of medicine and superstition reveals a stark contrast to today's world. Imagine Agnes sipping bitter tea by a smoky fire, while modern listeners reach for a therapist's number or a prescription bottle. The comparison is almost comical: herbs versus pills, curses versus diagnoses, but it underscores a shared human struggle to make sense of the mind's shadows. The Black Death left the village reeling, its people clinging to any remedy, however crude, to survive. Modern science offers clarity, but in 1350, Herbs and lancets were the best hope, wielded with a mix of faith and fear. Agnes's mother tying another poultice isn't just fighting melancholy. She's fighting for her daughter's place in a community quick to judge. The village, with its muddy paths and flickering rushlights, is a testament to resilience. Its people battling despair with the only weapons they have. The daily grind of village life, spinning wool, baking bread, tending sheep, offers its own kind of medicine. Agnes might find solace in the rhythm of work, the clack of the loom, a steady pulse against her racing thoughts. The air smells of damp wool and fresh earth, grounding her in the moment. Neighbors, sharing ale at the tavern, tell tales of miraculous cures, their voices a chorus of hope and superstition. These stories, however fanciful, knit the community together, offering Agnes a fragile sense of belonging. In today's world, we might join a support group or post our struggles online, but the instinct is the same, to seek connection in the face of pain. The village's crude remedies, from St. John's wort to hagstones, are clumsy but earnest, a reflection of a people determined to survive, even when the tools at hand are woefully inadequate. This harsh world, with its lancets and charms, teaches a profound lesson. Agnes's village, scarred by plague and paranoia, fought to heal its own, using herbs, blood, and superstition as shields against despair. You, lying awake with modern stresses, might find comfort in their struggle, their refusal to give up despite limited knowledge. The physician's blade, Marjorie's poultices, the whispered charms, they were acts of defiance, a refusal to let the mind's darkness win. Modern tools, therapy, medication offer new paths, but the human spirit then and now seeks light in the gloom. As the village settles into dusk, its hearths glowing faintly, it's a reminder that survival is a universal fight, waged with whatever tools we have, from herbs to hope, in a world that's always been both cruel and kind. In the gray dawn of a 1350 English village, where mist clings to the thatched roofs like a mourner's veil, the church bell tolls, a somber call that cuts through the damp air heavy with wood smoke and the faint stench of a sluggish river. The Black Death has left this place a shadow of itself, its fields half empty, its churchyard swollen with fresh graves. Yet life persists, stubborn as the weeds pushing through cracked earth. A young woman, Agnes, sits by her hearth, the fire's weak glow flickering across her face, etched with a melancholy that the villagers whisper about in hushed tones. Her nights are restless, her dreams haunted, but in this era, her heavy heart isn't just sadness, it's a sign of something sinister, perhaps a demon's touch or a curse cast in the market square. For solace, the village looks beyond its muddy lanes to the church's promise of pilgrimage, a grueling journey to shrines like St. Dymphna's, where hope glimmers like a candle in the dark. The church, with its mossy stones and incense-thick air, is the village's anchor, but for those like Agnes, whose minds are clouded with melancholy, it offers a path outward, a pilgrimage to seek divine healing. Father Edmund, the gaunt priest with ink-stained fingers, urges Agnes to travel to the shrine of St. Dymphna, a saint revered for curing madness, her relics housed in a chapel 2 counties away. The journey is no small feat, a 2-day trek through forests thick with mud and menace, where bandits lurk and rain turns paths to sludge. Yet the promise of relief pulls at Agnes's mother, her face lined with worry as she presses a penny into her daughter's hand, an offering for the saint. The village buzzes with tales of Dymphna's miracles, souls restored, demons banished, each story a fragile thread of hope woven into the fabric of their faith. The air smells of damp wool and resolves as Agnes prepares, her heart a tangle of fear and longing. The pilgrimage begins at dawn, Agnes joined by her brother Thomas and cousin Alina, their boots sinking into the mire as they leave the village behind. The forest looms, its branches clawing at the sky, the air sharp with the scent of wet pine and decay. Thomas, practical and broad-shouldered, carries a sack of bread and dried fish, his gruff voice cutting through the silence with tales of nights to keep spirits high. Alina, ever cheerful, hums folk tunes, her voice a thin ribbon of light against the gloom. The journey is punishing, mud clings to their hems, rain soaks their cloaks, and the threat of wolves or worse keeps them vigilant. Yet there's a strange camaraderie in their shared struggle, a bond forged in the slosh of footsteps and the shared weight of hope. For Agnes, each step is a prayer, her melancholy a heavy pack she carries alongside her meager belongings. The shrine of St. Dymphna, when they reach it, is a small stone chapel, its walls damp with the breath of countless pilgrims. The air inside is thick with incense, its smoky sweetness mingling with the sweat of the desperate, some weeping, others muttering, their eyes wild with hope or despair. A silver reliquary, holding a fragment of the saint's bone, gleams faintly under candlelight, and Agnes kneels before it, her knees aching on the cold stone floor. The priest's Latin chants drone like a distant storm, their rhythm both soothing and alien. She places her penny offering, its metallic clink swallowed by the chapel's hum, and whispers a plea for peace. The scene is chaotic yet sacred, a tapestry of faith and desperation. For Agnes, the act of being here, surrounded by others who carry their own unseen burdens, feels like a shared confession, a moment where her melancholy is no longer a solitary curse. Here's the shock. In 1350, a pilgrimage meant to heal could kill you, the journey's dangers rivaling the demons it sought to banish. The roads to St. Dymphna's shrine are treacherous, plagued by bandits who prey on weary travelers or storms that turn paths into rivers. Some pilgrims, weakened by hunger or sickness, never return, their bones left to bleach in forgotten clearings. Modern listeners, tucked in bed with soothing playlists or therapy apps, might scoff at the idea of walking days for a saint's blessing. But for Agnes, this journey is a gamble with her soul. The Church's promise of miracles comes with a brutal cost: physical exhaustion, fear, and the risk of being labeled mad if the pilgrimage fails to cure. The village, sending its troubled souls into the wild, is both hopeful and ruthless, its faith a double-edged sword that cuts as often as it heals. Yet the pilgrimage is more than a quest for miracles. It's a communal act, binding the village to a shared purpose. Neighbors pool resources to send Agnes, offering bread or a worn cloak, their gestures small but heavy with care. Thomas and Alina, trudging beside her, are more than escorts. They're anchors, their presence a reminder that even in a world scarred by plague, no one walks alone. Back in the village, those who stay behind whisper prayers for Agnes's safe return, their voices mingling with the clatter of looms and the bleating of sheep. The community, for all its paranoia about curses and demons, rallies around its own, their faith a fragile glue holding fractured lives together. The air on the journey smells of mud and pine, but it carries a faint warmth, the unspoken bond of a village refusing to let despair win. When Agnes returns, the pilgrimage hasn't erased her melancholy, but it's quieted the village's whispers. The church, with its rituals and relics, offers a structure that steadies her days: Mass on Sundays, confessions that cleanse the soul, and festivals that break the monotony. May Day brings a riot of color, with ribbons twirling around a maypole and ale flowing like laughter. The air smells of blooming hawthorn, and for a moment, Agnes feels lighter, her heart lifted by the village's joy. These communal moments, however fleeting, are medicine of their own kind, knitting the villagers into a tapestry of shared survival. In today's world, we might join a support group or share our struggles online, but the instinct is the same: to find solace in others, to weave connections from the threads of pain. The village's communal life extends beyond festivals. Neighbors share meals, mend each other's roofs, and gather at the tavern, where stories of pilgrimages and miracles mingle with the scent of spilled ale. Alina, Agnes's cousin, lingers by the hearth, her chatter about market gossip a small gift of normalcy. Thomas, ever practical, pulls Agnes into the fields, believing work soothes a troubled mind. The rhythm of weeding, the cool earth under her fingers, grounds her, quiet defiance against her inner shadows. Even old Marjorie, the healer, offers a new bundle of herbs, her wrinkled hands trembling with care. These acts, rooted in superstition and survival, reflect a community that, despite its fears, holds its own close. The village, with its muddy lanes and smoky hearths, is a crucible where hope is forged from hardship. This communal spirit, so vital in 1350, reveals a timeless truth. The Black Death tore the village apart, yet its people rebuilt through shared rituals and stubborn care. Agnes's pilgrimage, though grueling, was a collective effort, her neighbors' prayers and provisions a lifeline as real as any saint's relic. Modern listeners, battling stress in the glow of their screens, might find comfort in this resilience, this refusal to let despair rule. The village's crude methods, prayers, pilgrimages, communal feasts, were their therapy, their way of making sense of a world unmoored by loss. Today, we have counselors and hotlines, but the need to connect, to be seen, remains unchanged. The church bell, tolling in the dusk, carries a promise. Even in the darkest times, the community is a light that endures, a beacon for troubled souls then and now. As the village settles into night, its fires dying to embers, the air grows still, scented with earth and hope. Agnes, kneeling in her small home, clutches the St. Dymphna charm, its weight a reminder of her journey. The community, with its prayers and shared burdens, has given her something to hold on to, a fragile shield against her melancholy. You, lying awake with modern worries, might see yourself in her struggle, her quiet fight to find peace in a world that offers few answers. The pilgrim's muddy paths and the village's raucous festivals are echoes of our own search for connection. The Middle Ages, for all its superstition and fear, understood that no one heals alone. This lesson, born in a chapel's incense-heavy air, lingers like a whisper, guiding us through our own restless nights. In the quiet dusk of an English village in 1350, where the air carries the sharp tang of wood smoke and the faint rot of a sluggish river, life persists like a stubborn weed breaking through cracked earth. The Black Death, a merciless reaper, has left half the village buried in the churchyard, their graves a silent testament to a world turned upside down. Yet the living carry on, their boots squelching through muddy lanes, their hands rough from plowing fields and spinning wool. A young woman, Agnes, sits by her hearth, the fire's faint glow casting shadows that dance like her unspoken sorrows. Her melancholy, a heavy cloak she cannot shed, haunts her nights. But in this era, there's no language for her pain, only whispers of sin or curses. The village, scarred but unyielding, finds ways to endure, weaving resilience from the threads of work, ritual, and community, a fragile shield against the darkness of a troubled mind. The rhythm of labor is the village's heartbeat, pulsing through the long days that stretch from dawn to dusk. Agnes rises with the rooster's crow, her fingers stiff as she threads a loom, the clack of wood a steady counterpoint to her racing thoughts. The air smells of damp wool and fresh earth, grounding her in the moment. Her mother, her face lined from years of loss, needs dough for rye bread, the scent of yeast mingling with the hearth's smoke. Across the village, men plow fields, their shouts mingling with the bleating of lambs, while women mend nets or churn butter, their hands moving in a dance as old as the hills. This work, grueling yet familiar, is no mere chore. It's a lifeline, a way to tether the mind when melancholy threatens to pull it adrift. In 1350, there was no therapy, no pills, only the stubborn act of planting, weaving, baking, each task a quiet defiance against despair. The village's fields, still half barren from the plague's toll, demand every ounce of strength. Agnes joins her brother, Thomas, to weed the barley, the sun warming her back, the cool soil crumbling under her fingers. Thomas, practical to a fault, grunts. Idle hands breed dark thoughts. His voice rough but kind. The proverb, older than the church's stones, carries weight here, where idleness is a luxury none can afford. Work offers structure, a rhythm that soothes the mind's chaos. The blacksmith's hammer rings in the distance, a steady pulse, while the miller's wheel creaks, grinding grain into flour. These sounds, these tasks, are the village's pulse, keeping despair at bay. Modern listeners, scrolling through stress relief apps in the quiet of their beds, might smile at the simplicity of it, pulling weeds to mend a heavy heart. But for Agnes, the earth's weight in her hands is a small salvation, a way to anchor herself in a world unmoored by loss. Rituals, too, weave a net of stability, their cadence as vital as the seasons. The church, with its mossy walls and incense-heavy air, sets the village's calendar, Lent's fasting, Easter's hope, the raucous joy of Whitsuntide. On Sundays, Agnes joins the congregation, her wool cloak damp from the morning mist, as Father Edmund's voice drones through Latin hymns. The candlelight flickers, casting shadows on painted saints, their eyes both stern and sorrowful. These moments, steeped in faith, give Agnes a framework to hold her pain, a way to name the unnameable. The village gathers for Candlemas, carrying wax tapers through the churchyard, their flames trembling in the wind, a silent prayer for those lost to the plague. The air smells of melting wax and wet earth, a reminder that even in grief, there's continuity, a cycle that binds the living to the dead. Festivals break the monotony, their colors and sounds a fleeting escape from the daily grind. May Day transforms the village green into a riot of ribbons and laughter, the maypole twirling under a sky heavy with blooming hawthorn. Agnes, though her heart remains heavy, finds herself swaying to the fiddler's tune, the ale's bitter tang loosening her thoughts. The villagers, their faces flushed, share stories of harvests past, their voices a chorus against the silence of the plague's aftermath. These gatherings, however brief, are medicine of their own kind, knitting the community into a tapestry of shared survival. In today's world, we might find solace in group chats or coffee meetups, but the instinct is the same: to gather, to laugh, to remind ourselves we're not alone. Agnes, clutching a mug of ale, feels a flicker of lightness, her melancholy softened by the village's stubborn joy. The community's care, however clumsy, is a cornerstone of resilience. Agnes's mother, her hands trembling as she stirs pottage, never stops watching her daughter, her worry etched in every line of her face. She brews tea from St. John's wort, its bitter taste a daily ritual of hope, even if it does little for Agnes's heart. Alina, Agnes's cousin, lingers by the hearth, her chatter about market gossip a small gift of normalcy. They say a merchant saw a two-headed calf, she says, her eyes bright, and Agnes can't help but smile, the weight lifting for a moment. Even old Marjorie, the healer, shuffles in with a new bundle of lavender, her muttered blessings, a mix of superstition and care. These acts, rooted in a world that fears demons and curses, are the village's way of holding its own, a refusal to let one of their own slip into the dark. Here's the shock. In this tightly knit village, where every neighbor knows your name, a troubled mind could still mark you as an outcast, your pain a spark for suspicion. If Agnes's melancholy deepens, if she weeps too openly or shuns the communal work, the whispers turn sharp. The miller's wife, fetching water at the well, might hiss, "She's touched," her words spreading like a plague through the muddy lanes. The Black Death left paranoia in its wake, and tales of witchcraft are already sprouting, a dark undercurrent in a village clinging to faith. A woman branded as cursed might face exile or worse, her melancholy twisted into proof of pact with the devil. Modern listeners, with their podcasts and therapy apps, might scoff at such fears, but for Agnes, they're a noose tightening with every sidelong glance, a reminder that even community has its limits. Yet the village's bonds, however fragile, are a lifeline. Neighbors share bread, mend each other's roofs, and gather at the tavern where ale loosens tongues and stories flow. Thomas, Agnes's brother, pulls her into the fields, believing work heals more than herbs. The rhythm of weeding, the bleating of lambs, the sun's faint warmth, these are small anchors, grounding her when her mind threatens to drift. Alina, with her endless tales, sits by the river, her voice a gentle hum against the water's murmur, offering Agnes a space to breathe. These moments, unremarkable yet profound, reflect a community that, despite its fears, refuses to abandon its own. The air smells of fresh straw and spilled ale, carrying the quiet promise that no one faces their demons alone, even in a world quick to judge. The village's resilience is nowhere clearer than in its rituals of remembrance. All Souls' Day, as winter looms, draws the villagers to the churchyard, their candles flickering like stars against the dusk. The graves, too many from the plague, are a heavy reminder of loss, yet the act of gathering, of praying for the dead, binds the living closer. The air is thick with the scent of wax and wet earth, the priest's voice a low hum as he chants for lost souls. For Agnes, this ritual is a mirror to her own struggle, a way to honor the brother she lost, to carry her grief without breaking. The community, scarred by the same tragedy, shares this burden, their candles a collective light against the dark. In today's world, we might light a candle on social media or join a grief group, but the instinct remains to come together, to make sense of pain through shared acts of memory. This resilience, forged in the crucible of 1350, speaks to a timeless truth. The village, with its muddy paths and smoky hearths, faced the Black Death's devastation and emerged, battered but unbroken. Agnes's melancholy, though never named as depression, was met with work, rituals, and the stubborn care of her neighbors. You, lying awake with modern stresses, might find solace in their story, their refusal to let despair win. The villagers' tools, looms, prayers, festivals, were crude, yet they served the same purpose as our apps and therapies, to anchor the mind, to remind us we're not alone. The church bell, tolling in the night, carries a promise across centuries. Survival is a collective act, a stubborn spark of hope that burns even in the darkest times, lighting the way for those who carry on. As twilight drapes its heavy cloak over a 1350 English village, the stars pierce the sky like stubborn sparks, casting a faint glow over thatched roofs sagging under the weight of time. The air hums with the acrid tang of wood smoke, woven with the damp musk of earth and the faint rot of a sluggish river winding through barren fields. The Black Death's shadow lingers, its scars etched in the churchyard's overcrowded graves, where half the village lies silent, a grim reminder of a world fractured by plague. Across centuries, in the fog-choked streets of Victorian London, a queen named Victoria sat in her palace, her black silk gown rustling like a whispered elegy for her lost Albert. Two eras, divided by 500 years, yet bound by a universal thread, the human struggle to mend a troubled mind. Agnes, a village woman weighed down by melancholy, and Victoria, a queen battling low spirits, faced their world's harsh judgments, demons in one, decorum in the other, yet found solace in connection through the stubborn care of a village or the fierce love of a partner. In Agnes's village, the plague's devastation was a wound that never fully healed. Her melancholy, a heavy fog settling in her chest, was met with crude tools. Bitter teas brewed from St. John's wort, bloodletting that left her dizzy, and prayers to St. Dymphna whispered in a cold chapel. The church, its mossy stones damp with the breath of pilgrims, offered rituals that gave shape to her pain. Sunday Mass, with its droning hymns and flickering candles, was a rhythm she clung to, the scent of incense a faint comfort against her restless nights. Neighbors, their hands rough from spinning wool or plowing fields, shared small acts of care, a loaf of rye bread, a bundle of lavender, a whispered charm to ward off demons. These gestures, clumsy as they were, wove a net of support, a community refusing to let one of its own sink into despair's depths. The air, thick with wax and wet earth, carried a quiet promise. Even in a world of loss, no one fights alone. Victoria's world, glittering with chandeliers and velvet, was no less confining. Her low spirits, scribbled in tear-stained journals, were a secret she guarded from a court that demanded a queen's poise. Albert's love, kindled through letters and nurtured in quiet evenings by the fire, was her anchor, his voice a melody that softened the weight of her crown. His death in 1861 shattered her, leaving her in mourning black, her palace a tomb of silence. She kept his watch, its ticking a cruel echo of his heartbeat, and laid out his nightshirt each night, a ritual that defied the court's whispers of madness. Her children's laughter, echoing through Buckingham's halls, and the memory of Albert's reforms, the Crystal Palace, his vision for progress, pulled her through. Love, even in loss, was her lifeline, a spark that burned through her darkest days, proving that even a queen could find strength in connection. The church in Agnes's time was both sanctuary and judge, its incense-heavy air thick with promises of salvation and threats of damnation. Father Edmund, his fingers stained from copying scriptures, saw her melancholy as sin, prescribing fasting and pilgrimages to banish unseen demons. The villagers, their wool cloaks damp from the mist, gathered for Mass, their voices rising in hymns that curled like smoke to the rafters. These rituals, rigid as the stone altar, gave structure to chaos, a way to name the unnameable pain of a heavy heart. Agnes, kneeling on the cold floor, her rosary beads worn smooth, found a fragile comfort in the rhythm of prayer, its cadence a heartbeat against her fears. The community, scarred by the same plague that took her brother, rallied around her, their care, Alina's chatter, Thomas's gruff encouragement, Marjorie's herbs, a stubborn refusal to let despair win. Victoria, in her Victorian cage, faced a different kind of scrutiny. Her grief after Albert's death shocked a court obsessed with propriety. Queens weren't meant to mourn so openly, to wear black for decades. Yet she defied them, her sorrow a rebellion against the etiquette that sought to stifle her heart. She wrote to Albert in her journal, as if he could still read her words, "You were my light, my strength." The palace, with its polished mahogany and ticking clocks, felt empty without his laughter, but his memory, his letters, his vision kept her tethered. Her children, their footsteps a joyful riot, were a reminder of the life they built. In a world that demanded perfection, Albert's love had taught her to be human, to feel deeply, and to endure. Her resilience, forged in loss, was a quiet triumph, a queen carrying on for her empire and her family. Here's the shock. In both eras, seeking help for a troubled mind could mark you as broken, a pariah in your own world. For Agnes, a tearful confession to Father Edmund risked whispers of witchcraft, her melancholy twisted into proof of a demonic pact. The village, quick to judge, might cast her out, her pain a spark for a witch's pyre. Tales of Bethlehem Hospital, with its chained inmates and filthy cells, drifted through the muddy lanes, a chilling warning of what madness could bring. Victoria, too, faced judgment. Her open mourning and her refusal to shed black sparked court gossip of a queen unhinged. Imagine that. A villager and a queen, both caged by their era's ignorance, their hearts judged as harshly as their actions. Modern listeners, with their therapy apps and online forums, might laugh at such cruelty, but in 1350 or 1861, the pain was a dangerous secret, one that could cost you your place in the world. Yet resilience bloomed in these unforgiving times. Agnes's village, its fields half empty from the plague, clung to life through work and ritual. The clack of looms, the bleating of lambs, the raucous laughter of May Day, these were anchors, grounding the community against despair. Neighbors shared ale, mended roofs, and prayed together, their bonds a quiet rebellion against the plague's legacy. Agnes, her hands worn from spinning wool, found solace in these rhythms, her melancholy softened by Alina's stories or Thomas's insistence on weeding the barley. The church's calendar, Lent's austerity, Easter's hope, Whitsuntide's joy, gave structure to her days, a way to carry her pain without breaking. The air, thick with the scent of wax and wet earth, carried a promise. Even in a world of loss, the community held you fast. Victoria's resilience was no less fierce. Widowed at 42, She faced a court that expected stoicism, but she mourned openly, her black silk a banner of love and pain. She kept Albert's belongings, his watch, his clothes, as if they could summon him back. The court whispered of madness, but she was no madwoman, only a woman grieving her heart's anchor. Her children, their chatter filling Buckingham's halls, and the legacy of Albert's reforms, the Great Exhibition, his vision for progress, gave her purpose. She ruled on, her grief a heavy crown, proving that love could endure beyond death. In today's world, we might turn to therapy or support groups, but Victoria's journals, her rituals, were her therapy, her way of clinging to Albert's light. Her survival, like Agnes's, was a defiance of a world that sought to silence their pain. The village's festivals, like Whitsuntide or Candlemas, were bursts of color in a gray world. The green sparkled with ribbons, the air sweet with blooming hawthorn, as villagers danced and drank, their laughter drowning out the churchyard's silence. Agnes, swaying to a fiddler's tune, felt her heart lift, if only for a moment. These gatherings, however fleeting, were medicine, knitting the community into a tapestry of shared survival. Victoria, too, found solace in the family, her children's chatter, the scent of warm milk in the nursery, a contrast to the court's cold formality. In today's world, we might join a support group or share our struggles online, but the instinct is the same: to gather, to connect, to find light in others. The village's ale-soaked songs and Victoria's tear-stained journals are echoes of our own search for solace, proof that connection is the heart of healing. The tools of these eras, prayers, herbs, love, seem crude now, but they were lifelines. Agnes's neighbors, with their sage bundles and whispered charms, fought for her with the only weapons they had. The church's rituals, tolling bells, candlelit processions, gave structure to suffering, a way to name the unnameable. Victoria's love for Albert sustained her through letters and memories, was her medicine, her strength drawn from his presence, even after he was gone. Modern listeners, with their mindfulness apps and counselors, might chuckle at the idea of curing sadness with a pilgrimage or a locket, but the goal was the same: to mend a fractured mind through connection. The village's muddy paths and the palace's velvet corridors held people grappling with despair, their efforts clumsy but earnest, their resilience a spark that burned through the darkest nights. This shared struggle across centuries reveals a profound truth. Agnes and Victoria, one a villager, the other a queen, faced their era's harsh judgments with courage, finding solace in community and love. The Black Death left Agnes's village reeling, yet its people rebuilt through shared work and rituals, their care a quiet defiance. Victoria, widowed and broken, carried on for her children and empire, Albert's love a light that never faded. You, lying awake with modern stresses, might see yourself in their stories. Agnes, spinning wool to still her mind. Victoria, writing through her grief. The tools have changed, herbs to pills, prayers to therapy, but the human need to be seen, to be held, remains. The church bells toll, and the rustle of Victoria's gown are echoes of our own fight to find peace, a reminder that we've always survived by leaning on each other. The village's resilience was forged in the crucible of survival. Neighbors, their hands calloused from labor, shared meals, mended fences, and gathered at the tavern where ale loosened tongues and stories flowed. Alina's chatter about a two-headed calf at the market, Thomas's insistence on weeding the fields, Marjorie's lavender bundles, These were acts of care, however flawed, that kept Agnes tethered. The church's rituals, from the somber toll of All Souls' Day to the joyful chaos of Whitsuntide, gave the village a rhythm, a way to mark time amidst loss. Agnes, her fingers worn from the loom, found solace in these moments, her melancholy a quiet companion she learned to carry. The air, heavy with the scent of straw and ale, carried a promise. Even in a world of plague and paranoia, the community was a shield, a light against the dark. Victoria's story mirrors this resilience, her grief a testament to love's enduring power. After Albert's death, she retreated to Osborne House, the seaside haven they built together, its air salty and sharp, a contrast to London's fog. She walked its gardens, the crunch of gravel a faint distraction from her pain. Her children, their laughter a joyful riot, kept her grounded, their chatter a reminder of the life she and Albert created. She ruled on, her black silk a symbol of defiance, her journals a space to pour out her heart. The court's whispers of madness were nothing compared to the strength she drew from Albert's memory, his reforms, his vision, his love. In today's world, we might seek therapy or medication, but Victoria's rituals, writing, remembering, were her way of surviving. A queen proving that even grief could not break her. The contrast between these eras and ours is stark, yet illuminating. Agnes's village, with its crude remedies and fearful whispers, fought to heal its own with herbs and prayers. The church, its bells tolling through the mist, offered structure, however harsh, to a world unmoored by plague. Victoria's palace, with its velvet and etiquette, demanded poise, yet her love for Albert gave her freedom to feel. Modern listeners, battling stress in the glow of their phones, might smile at the idea of curing sadness with a pilgrimage or a journal, but the instinct is the same, to seek connection, to find solace in others. The village's ale-soaked laughter and Victoria's tear-stained pages are mirrors of our own struggles, our own search for peace in a chaotic world. This resilience, born in muddy lanes and gilded halls, speaks to a timeless truth. Agnes and Victoria, one a villager, the other a queen, faced their era's judgments with courage, finding strength in community and love. The Black Death left scars, yet Agnes's neighbors rebuilt through shared work and rituals, their care a quiet rebellion. Victoria, widowed and broken, carried on for her children and empire, Albert's love a beacon in her darkness. You, lying awake with modern worries, might see yourself in their stories, Agnes weaving wool to quiet her mind, Victoria writing to hold on to love. The tools have changed, herbs to pills, prayers to therapy, but the need to connect, to be seen, remains. The church bell tolls, and the rustle of Victoria's gown echoes of our fight for peace, a reminder that we survive by leaning on each other. As the 1350 village slips into sleep, its fires die to embers, and the air cools with the promise of winter. The stars gleam above, a silent witness to the villagers' stubborn hope. In Victorian London, Victoria sits by her window, the fog curling like a ghostly veil, her heart heavy but unbroken. Both worlds, so different yet so alike, teach us resilience. The village, with its looms and laughter, and the palace with its journals and love, show that healing comes not from cures, but from connection, neighbors sharing bread, a husband's gentle words, and a community's prayers. Modern tools offer new paths, but the instinct to reach out, to find solace in others, is timeless. As you drift toward sleep, Let these stories wrap you like a warm blanket, a reminder that even in the darkest times, humanity finds a way to endure, to hope, to heal. As night falls over a 1350 English village, stars gleam like stubborn sparks above thatched roofs, where embers fade in hearths, leaving a faint glow against the chill. The air hums with wood smoke, damp earth, and the sour rot of a sluggish river, a reminder of the Black Death's scars etched in crowded graves. Across centuries, in Victorian London's fog-choked streets, Queen Victoria sat, her black silk gown rustling like a dirge for Albert, her lost light. Two worlds, divided by time, yet woven together by a shared struggle, mending a troubled mind. Agnes, a villager heavy with melancholy, and Victoria, a queen battling low spirits, faced their era's cruel judgments, demons in one, decorum in the other, yet found solace in connection through village bonds or a lover's devotion. Their stories, steeped in history for sleep, reveal how love and community can heal even the darkest hearts. Agnes's village, battered by plague, leaned on crude tools, bitter herbs, bloodletting, prayers to Saint Dymphna. The church, its incense-thick air heavy with hope, offered rituals to tame her pain, while neighbors shared bread and whispered charms, their care a stubborn spark against despair. Victoria, caged by Victorian etiquette, hid her grief from a court demanding poise, but Albert's love, his letters, his laughter, was her lifeline, enduring even after his death in 1861. Here's the shock. In both eras, a troubled mind could brand you an outcast. Agnes risking witchcraft whispers, Victoria labeled unhinged for mourning too long. Modern listeners, with therapy apps, might smirk at such cruelty, but in 1350 or 1861, pain was a dangerous secret, a spark for exile or scorn. Yet resilience bloomed. Agnes's neighbors, their hands rough from looms, wove a net of care, ale-soaked laughter, May-Day dances, candlelit vigils. Victoria, widowed, ruled on, her children's chatter and Albert's memory as her anchors. Their tools, prayers, love, seem crude now, but they were lifelines, like our apps and support groups. The village's muddy paths and the palace's velvet halls held people fighting despair with connection. You, battling modern stress, might see yourself in Agnes's weaving or Victoria's journals, their courage a mirror to your own. The church bell tolls, and Victoria's rustling gown echoes our fight for peace, a reminder that we survive by leaning on each other across time. So as you drift toward sleep, picture that 1350 village, its fires dim, stars bright above. Or Victoria, her fog-wrapped window a veil for her grief, yet her heart unbroken. These stories, from plague-scarred fields to gilded palaces, show healing comes not from cures but from bonds, neighbors, lovers, and shared hope. Modern tools offer new paths, but the instinct to connect endures, a light in the darkest nights. Let these tales wrap you like a blanket, easing your restless mind. Share your thoughts below. How did this history of sleep touch you? Or pass this clip to friends, letting them wander these ancient paths too. Rest now, safe in the arms of history's timeless hope.